Hey there, it's Michael. Welcome to Whole Again, the show that's here in support of you creating a meaningful life and the person you're becoming. And I'm excited to share a new series with you that will air this summer as America turns 250 years old, which is still pretty young relative to many other countries across this big blue marble that we all share. The series is called A Perfectly Imperfect Union. In 2022, I rode my bike across America, from Astoria, Oregon to the Lincoln Memorial. My wife drove our RV, and she had two co-pilots, Jester and Hope, two Springer Spaniels. And when we did it, America was coming out of the pandemic, and we were hurting from things that had happened prior to the pandemic. Of course, going through what we all went through. And at that time, and this is something I still believe today, is that we were entering an inflection point. An inflection point for us to hopefully pause, breathe, and reflect on who we wish to become as individuals, as communities, and as a country. As I pedaled across America, I wanted to share America's beauty with others, her natural beauty and the beauty of her people. And I also wanted to share where we were hurting. As America turns 250, I believe Kintsugi, which is something we use as a metaphor here at Whole Again, is a perfect metaphor for where we are as a country. There's so much beauty to celebrate, and we can also acknowledge that parts of us feel broken or are broken, but we can find a way to come back together, just like Kintsugi teaches us. And when we do, we don't try to erase or cover up where we have scars or blemishes. We highlight them in gold, and we celebrate them as symbols of our strength and resilience. Kintsugi is called the golden repair, and in essence, we can see beauty in something that's perfectly imperfect. During this series, I plan to speak to at least 2 people in each state and the District of Columbia. So 102 conversations with real folk, as I like to say. We're going to let the celebrities and the big influencers have their day somewhere else. But here, I want to reach out and talk to real people and listen to their reflections as they think about America turning 250 years old. And my hope is that you'll tune in to at least one, if not all 102. Because my theory going into this is that you'll hear different perspectives. Some may be aligned with yours. Others may not. But my hope is that you hear the goodness in your fellow citizens and realize, as Maya Angelou shared with us, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. I've had the privilege of traveling all over the world and all over this country. And this belief is something that I hold deep inside of me. So yes, I do believe that we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. So if you're ready to meet one of your fellow neighbors, an everyday American who is also perfectly imperfect like all of us, take a healthy breath in and a slow, releasing breath out, and get to know Will Davenport. Hey, Will, so good to see you. Last time I saw you in real life, and now I get to see you through pixels and ones and zeros, but nevertheless, it's still really good to see you. So how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. As long as I'm not a hologram or an avatar right now, it is actually me.
Oh yeah, it is indeed you. So I know you and I know some of your story, but for those that don't know you, can you take a moment to introduce yourself? And also, where are you calling in from?
Absolutely. My name is Will Davenport. I am the owner of a company called It Begins Within, developing leaders. I'm super blessed to be married to my wife of almost 28 years, Celeste, and
Ah, congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we have three adult children who my mom told me that one of the best things about being a parent can be the relationship you have with your adult children. And I've definitely found that to be true. I'm from Tennessee.
Ah, yeah. Well, I noticed the accent. Obviously, people can hear it. It's definitely not a New Yorker accent. So,
Yes.
so whereabouts in Tennessee?
So I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Cool. And what's something cool about Tennessee? Because us Americans, we don't. We travel, but we certainly haven't been to every state. So, if someone doesn't know Tennessee, or maybe only knows Tennessee from Nashville, what's something that's really cool about Tennessee that folks may not know about?
Well, I think more and more you just say Dolly Parton, and
Dolly
that makes
Parton.
people think of
Yes.
Tennessee, Gatlinburg, and her incredible investment in this state. But I would say something that I've really appreciated is just how much natural beauty there is around. So Tennessee, East Tennessee has the most visited national park in the United States, the Great Smoky Mountain National
Oh,
Forest.
really? Oh, wow, I
And
didn't
I'm
know
if
that's a good fun fact. Wow.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it's not all that close. I mean, it's hugely visited from people from all around, and I feel like they've done a really good job of retaining the natural beauty, and so, yeah, it's amazing.
Very cool. That's very cool. So what is something that people get wrong about Tennessee?
Well, we do border and have part of Appalachia in our area, and so I think Uh, my son lives in New York City right now, and
Okay.
he
All
came
right.
down with a couple of his friends, and I think they expected us to talk slow and not be able to keep up intellectually with people from New York City. So, yeah, I mean, in a lot of areas of this state, it's incredibly diverse, and um, we've got Oak Ridge National Labs right next to us, so it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Tennessee is like one of those states, it's really it's quite fascinating about how how wide it is, and so you get to the eastern part of Tennessee, and it has its own vibe, and you go west closer to Memphis. It feels like almost a completely different state. I grew up in New York,
Hmm.
so in New York State, so Long Island and New York City feel like a completely different state from where I grew up in Rochester, which is the
Yeah.
western part of New York State. So it's, and I think many of our states might have that. It may not be a west to east thing, it might be a north and south thing, but we live in a big country and there's a lot of diversity to it. So I love it. I love that you shared that, and just that cultural shock of his New York friends coming down. That's always
Yeah.
that's always good. So let's say you're having a nice picnic in Knoxville. Maybe you just got back from Dolly World, who knows? And your friends are around, your maybe colleagues, neighbors, you name it. And they ask you, "Hey, Will, like what does America mean to you?" How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, and so forgive me, but it's Dollywood instead of Dollywood.
Dollywood. Okay,
I
sorry.
feel
I stand corrected. Thank
yeah,
you for that.
I mean,
Yes.
I feel like Dolly would want me to do that, so
I think Dolly, yeah, I think indeed, I think you are being a good representative of the state of Tennessee and Dolly Parton. So I stand corrected, and I will note that going forward.
okay. Thanks, Michael. Okay, what would I say about the United States? You know, to me, the thing that makes our nation so great, and I'm gonna say the lived reality sometimes and the ideal often is the idea that we can hold together what has made this nation so great and the horrible things that we've done at times, and that
Mm,
in our best moments, we're able to look at both and not need to pick one or the other.
yes.
So we can say this nation was built um, on a constitution and a Declaration of Independence and all the important documents that we have that was way ahead of its time and promised liberties and possibilities that were just so far ahead of everything being offered in the world. And at the same time, we enslaved millions of people, and a few things like that come to mind. And I think about the Japanese who were put into internment camps during the war. I think about the way immigrants have been treated in our country over the years. And so we're both.
Yes.
We're both in it. And it doesn't make us less of a country to admit that we have those faults.
Mm,
I think it actually makes us stronger. I think it shows a fragility to our view of this nation when we can only look at the positive. So yeah, that's what I would say. Our ability to hold together both our great accomplishments and our failures, um, and be mature enough to do that. That's what makes this nation great.
yeah, thanks for sharing that. As you know, I use Kintsugi as a metaphor for this series and also just my Whole Again podcast in general. And so with that, it does help us see our cracks, our blemishes, and also the beauty of all of it. And like, and we are
Mm,
amazing as humans. We can hold the things that we have a lot of pride about with joy and happiness and all that. We can also recognize at the very same time that we have had things in our past that are very less than pleasant and sometimes horrific as far as how we treated each other. We can do both in the same vessel, and I think to your point, that's our strength when we can do that.
mhm,
That's our maturity.
mhm.
So, yeah, I definitely appreciate what you just shared. And you mentioned immigrants. So, with this country, we have a huge immigrant story or ancestry to our land. I didn't know if you knew much about your family's story to this land and to this country.
Yes, actually, I have a great aunt who is the family historian.
Oh,
So
wow.
Martin Davenport was he fought in the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
And so that's one of the first people that we know of as an ancestor here in the United States. So I'm technically a son of the American Revolution. And then very early on in our family's history, one of the founders of the United Methodist movement came to the country and was traveling around, and he stayed at our home multiple times.
Oh, wow.
So that is a part, and I'm trying to think of his name right now, and it escapes me. But he came by the Davenport home multiple times on his travels across the United States. So yeah, very very early on, I think what I know of my family's legacy is that these were hardworking farmers, for the most part, traveling between North Carolina and Arkansas, but generally in rural areas. And one little thing is my father grew up in a little town called Spruce Pine, North Carolina,
Okay.
population 1,000 maybe.
All right.
And in this little tiny community where he grew up, there were, in his graduating class, I believe there were about 30 students, and 10 of them went on to get college degrees, and 6 of those went on to get masters or beyond.
Wow.
So a third from this remote little rural community went out. So that's a part of the legacy, I think, of my ancestors, that they aspired for more.
That's impressive. I love that. Thanks for sharing that part of your story and your family's history. As you know, we met at a speaking event down in Knoxville a few weeks ago called Disrupt HR. And during all the talks, there were plenty of talks or at least references to AI. And so I'd love to
Mhm.
get your take on AI. You have a camp that says it will destroy humanity, another camp, it will liberate humanity. And then there might be a third camp of like, I'm sort of in between. It can do, that and this. And let's see. So where do you where do you currently stand when you think about AI?
So let me give a related metaphor that I think will help with this.
Cool.
So when I hear people say things like, "It's never been worse than it is now,"
Yes.
in about our country in general, the state of the world, the thing that I often think too is, you're telling me that this is worse than when we were in the Civil War in our country, that this is worse than when the extinction of the Native Americans, many of our native, this is worse than World War II and World War One. To me, that's a lack of historical understanding. And so when it's all doom and gloom for I think it misses out on the fact that every time we've had a new technology, the same ideas have come out. Radio is going to, doom our country. Television is going to doom our country. Cell phones are going to doom our country. I do think AI has the capacity to do more damage quickly in the same way that a nuclear weapon
Mm,
can cause damage quickly. And I also think it has the capacity to help us in a lot of ways. So a very small example, but I use AI for some of the predictable things that a person might in a white collar job, to give me answers to quick questions, to give me a little deeper dive on topics that I'm interested in. But the thing that I've found that it's really helpful for is to be a partner that walks me through processes. And that has been invaluable. I train it and I say, ask me this, then ask me this, then ask me this, then create something based on the input I've given you. So that, and for a person who has very little budget outside of, what I'm doing on day to day, it's really helpful to have that. So, um, chosen carefully, I think AI has great potential to help people.
all right. So are you a open AI, Claude, Gemini, or something else kind of guy?
I will say I use Gemini most of the time, and the reason is because I'm so heavily invested in the Google ecosystem
Sure.
that it allows me to do
Good
things.
research. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and I will say Gemini is great. When I discovered Notebook LM and its capacity to teach me about things with it, creating an audio podcast or a video, I mean, that has just been so helpful. I'm creating a workshop for a client and I know that there's a gap in my knowledge. I don't have the time to do a ton of research on my own. So I go out and I find 10 good sources, stick it all in there and do a podcast, and that allows me to fill in at least 80 to 90% of that gap that I'm trying to take care of.
Very cool. Oh, that's awesome. Good reference, a good case, usage case. So thanks for sharing that. So when we think about coming together, and I also want to acknowledge the whole like it's never been worse, and some of your reference points, because I think we can get a little too too in despair mode. Like it's over, everything is ruined, and we've gone through really hard things, much harder than the current moment. At the same time, this is hard for the people who are living through it, right? Because we don't have that context or maybe that perspective. So when you think about the conversation that we're having in this country, that we're divided, we're separated, we're hurting, if you could work on one thing, maybe not in a perfect way as far as solving it, but in a meaningful way, what would you like to work on to help us perhaps heal, grow, get connected?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important question now. So important. I would say I'm in a business networking group right now, and like a lot of groups, there's rules about talking about religion and politics. Don't do
Okay.
that in this group. And I recognize and respect those rules, and at the same time, I think we actually probably need to be having more political conversations, not less. We need to be having better conversations, more meaningful and productive ones, but I don't think things are going to change if we avoid the conversations. So, a small example that from my own life, and I'm not exactly sure how this scales, but so I'll just talk about my own life for a moment. But, and I'm gonna, I guess, reveal my perspective a little bit after our President Trump was elected. I didn't vote for him, but I wanted to know why some of my close friends did. And so I invited a couple of folks out to coffee and sat down with them. And I said, I'm about to ask you a question that will probably make you feel uncomfortable. But what I'm going to promise you in advance is I'm not going to try to convince you of something that you don't believe. I just want to hear. I genuinely want to hear. And my friends were willing. They jumped in and they gave me their reasons for doing it. And then I waited for them to say, "So what's your perspective?" If they wanted it. If they didn't want it, no big deal. That wasn't the purpose of the conversation. But I think being able to navigate those difficult conversations and not be afraid of them. Some of them are going to blow up in our face. That's life. Many of them won't. The most likely outcome is that we'll create understanding that didn't exist in the past.
I love that notion of leaning into the difficult conversations on whatever topic we happen to be talking about. And I think, yeah, too, come from a corporate world where it was like, you can't talk about these things. A- And maybe that's the case in a corporate entity and the corporation gets to set the rules. But I think as a society, we could do a better job of leaning into these difficult conversations because without them, none of this goes away. None of it gets easier, or it doesn't allow us to find a way to hear each other's perspectives. So I love the fact that you did that and your friends' willingness to entertain your questions. I think it also could be helpful if we don't tie our own personal identity into a
Mhm.
particular political party, whatever party that happens to be. We seem to grab onto that much more strongly than say, you know, 10, 20 years ago, 30
Yeah.
years ago. And so, but yeah, I appreciate that willingness to dive into those hard conversations. I think we need to do a better job of that. We need to get stronger at that. So we got the birthday coming up. Usually at a birthday, we celebrate by having cake. So what kind of cake, Will, are you serving for America's 250th birthday?
No cake, but if I were
No cake. All right.
hypothetically to do it, I would say a carrot cake with cream cheese icing would be
Oh, that's a good cake.
the ideal cake.
Yeah. So, but in general, not a cake fan.
Um, what would I say to that? Uh,
And I'm not going to convince you, just like this could be a hard conversation. I'm not going to convince you to love cake, but I'm just sort of curious.
I don't know, I'm feeling some pressure in here, Michael.
Yeah, yeah, feeling some pressure, like you got to be a cake lover here. You don't have to be.
Okay,
You can love. We can have broccoli if you want to have broccoli.
well,
That's totally
let's
cool.
don't do that. I'm gonna say ice cream, and I'm gonna say, dulce de leche ice cream will be
Ooh,
how
all
I'll
right.
celebrate.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. All right, that's awesome. So as you're blowing out the candles on the ice cream or this carrot cake, what do you wish for America?
Mhm. Well, I thought about this too, and I'm gonna give what I think might be a curveball, but I would really love to see our nation change the way we do primaries. That's my wish. I
Ah,
think a
okay.
lot of the issues that we have in our political division has to do with our primary structure. Um, I think if we opened it so that anybody from any party could vote in any primary, we would um, we would remove a lot of the extreme candidates on both sides. Or if we
Mm,
did a ranked vote system where it's not just a simple yes or no or this person and not that person, but ranking. I think we could teach people that compromise and working together across the aisle is truly a foundational belief of our country. If we did that, that's my wish.
yes. Well, yeah, yeah, I like that wish because there was a ton of compromise as the country was being formed. It wasn't just one way or another. There was great and sometimes really rigorous, heated debate, and we tend to forget that. So, hey, I love your wish. So I've asked the person I chatted with just before you, happens to be Rob, coming from Maine, a question, and he has a question for you. And the question is, if you could go anywhere in this country that you haven't been before, where would you go and why?
I think I would go to California, and
All
I would
right.
just travel from I think I would travel from south to north, so I would hit the higher population zones first.
Mm-hmm.
But I've lived most of my life in the Southeast. I visited my son in New York City. I've spent a week or less in a few different places in the Midwest. But the only time I've been out west was in Las Cruces, New Mexico for 1 year. Uh, and so
Gotcha.
I think it would be great to get to travel through California and see. I mean, there's so much to see out there. So
There's so much. Yeah.
yeah, it would be great.
Yeah. You could go like going from San Diego up through LA, up to San Francisco, obviously the three big cities of that state. But then you have farm country and you get closer to the Oregon border, you get that Oregon vibe. So yeah, that would be a really cool trip. So what question do you have for the next person I chat with? One of your fellow neighbors.
I'm gonna say, name one event that you feel has been pivotal in shaping your identity.
Oh, I like that. Very cool question. Well, the next person I chat with, I'll ask them that very question. Well, thank you so much for joining me and putting a good ripple into the world and helping us become a more perfectly imperfect union. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.
Peace. I'm so grateful I got to sit down with Will as part of this series. As I mentioned in our conversation, I met Will at a speaking event in Knoxville, Tennessee. And my hope is that by the time this episode is released, his talk that day will be available to share via a link to connect us to YouTube. Because what he shares in his talk is something that I think we could all use right about now. And I love his question at the end. I definitely have an answer, and I'd love to know how you would respond to his question. I'll ask his question to our next guest here on the series, and I hope you'll continue to check out our conversations as we head towards America's 250th birthday and Election Day here in the States. As always, thanks for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, until our next episode, let's celebrate our scars as golden symbols of our strength and resilience. And don't forget to have fun. Storm in the castle. And if you wish to learn more about creating beautiful ripples and how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, please visit my website, michaelobrienshift.com, and sign up for my newsletter called The Ripple Effect. And join us each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at Whole Again and discover how you can heal, grow, and become more resilient. And celebrate our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Until then, remember, you can always come back to your breath. You've got this, and we've got you.